Hi everyone, welcome to Finance with JC, episode 1, 5 years to retirement. If you're watching this video, you're probably somewhere between 50, 60, 65 years old, staring down retirement in the next 5 years. What I want you to understand is that these next 5 years are the most critical financial period of the rest of your life. The decisions you make now will determine whether you retire comfortably or spend your golden years worrying about money. Most people think that the hard work is done once they've built up their nest egg. The reality of that is that the 5 or so years before retirement are when people are most either secure or they're about to sabotage it. Today I'm going to give you the exact roadmap for these crucial 5 years. We're going to be talking about portfolio, asset allocation, tax optimization, healthcare planning, the mistakes that can cost you tens, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of pounds if you get them wrong. So a good starting point is why these next 5 years are so important. So first one is that this is your last chance to make any course corrections, I guess. If you're behind on retirement savings, you've got 60 months, 60 salary, 60 paychecks of peak earning potential left to catch up. After that, it's too late, and then it's about compromising. Second, you're entering a danger zone for what we call sequencing risk. A major market crash when you're 58 to 63 can be devastating in the way that the same crash at 40 years old will just be a temporary setback. Third, you're transitioning from what we call wealth accumulation to wealth preservation. The investment strategy that have got you here might not be the strategy that gets you through retirement, if that makes sense, but we'll touch on that a bit more later. You also need to start thinking about irrevocable decisions about pensions, healthcare, where to live, when to retire. I mean, getting these wrong, it's not something that you can just go back and fix. I've actually seen people lose a lot of money from their retirement pot just because they didn't plan properly, and then they come to me after they've realised that things could have been done better. I've also seen people that were behind at 59, 60. They've completely transformed their retirement outlook because we put the right strategy in place. So it's a question for you, the watcher, is which group are you going to fall into? So the first 1 to 2 years about acceleration. So we break this down year by year, starting with your first 2 years in this countdown, right? You need a complete financial reality check. And that'll be like where you stand, what's your personal balance sheet looking like. That might be your retirement assets, pensions, ISAs, general investment accounts, equity that you have in property, everything really. And then you figure out how much income these assets will generate. So using a rate of 3.5%, if you have £500,000 in retirement assets, that's approximately £17,500 per year in sustainable income. Question is that going to be enough? If not, you have work to do. If that is going to be enough, you can stop watching. So if it's not going to be enough, you need to maximise your contributions. Like I said at the start there, you're now earning the most money that you're probably going to earn throughout your career. You need to be maxing out your pension contributions. Now remember that for expats, we can't contribute to a pension if we've been outside the UK longer than 5 years. So what we need to do is plan alongside that. Build up a pot within some sort of retirement account, an investment account that you can draw income from and just get that money working harder for you. Obviously we can do pension transfers and look at other types of assets as well that can help you provide income. You then want to be looking at what debt you have, what your liabilities are like. So that could be, you want to enter retirement really being debt free, especially mortgage debt. So if you've got 5 years left in your mortgage, you might be having a conversation around accelerating payments or invest more. Okay, so if your mortgage rate is 4 to 5%, you're probably better off investing. Above that, paying off early for the guaranteed return of owning the property and the peace of mind that comes with that is probably more important. But again, it all depends on what is suitable for you. When it comes to your asset allocation, you want to be looking at different types of holdings. So you don't want to be 100% into like US equities or UK equities. when you're in retirement, by this phase, what will be 60-70% in equity, 30% into fixed income, because you still need the growth, but you need to start building that protective foundation for when there are market events, which we've seen in the last couple of years. Third year is about de-risking. This is where you really start to de-risk your portfolio while still maintaining the growth potential. All right? So this will be where we start to reduce equity holdings down and prop up with more income generating assets, fixed income, and even property and things like that. It's all about reducing your exposure to sequencing risk. If there's a massive market shock, a 10% drop means you have to more than 10% back to get back to the same point. You want to have 2 to 3 years of expenses in super safe investments by the time you retire. Okay, that means that you can draw on the income and not have to sell down of your equity portfolio. If you have existing pensions, you should look at consolidating these pensions. They have a number of different benefits, investments, fees as well. There's loads of things that we can talk about. For defined benefits transfers, that's a completely different story. And the starting point with a DB transfer is that we always should not transfer it. Okay, so that's again a completely different topic, but it's something to bear in mind. If you're an expat and you're planning to return to the UK, you better start planning now, really. You need to understand the tax implications of becoming UK tax resident again, considering the timing when you go back, gains on investment accounts and drawing the income from your pension as well. They can have massive implications on your tax situation. So tax planning and planning that move ahead is key. Again, with the UK in mind here, you need to get back into the system for like NHS and state benefits and things like that. You're probably better off, or potentially better off, having private care. That will enable you to benefit from the private care while you're overseas, and it'll transition quite nicely for when you go back to the UK. Right. So the fourth year is about testing. Is this realistic? So you'll be practicing your retirement budget. So you start living on your projected retirement income that you think you'll need when you retire. So if you need 40 grand a year, try living on that amount now while you're still working. This serves two purposes really. You'll discover if the budget's realistic and if you need to save any extra money on top. If you do save anything, if you're underspending, it's just going to prop up your retirement pot. Alright? You need to stress test your portfolio. So let's say, for example, we have another market crash like in 2008, or most recently with COVID. How does that impact your retirement? What if inflation stays higher than what we think for a number of years? Now, if these stress tests show problems, you're going to have to adjust your strategy. The only way you can do that is by working with a professional. You're not going to get that from Reddit or from YouTube. You need to work with a professional. You then need to look at your estate planning. Okay, so this will be like nominations for beneficiaries in your pension accounts, having wills in place, looking at life insurance if you still need it. If you have a large inheritance tax liability, you can insure against that as well. There's a lot we can do with life insurance and estate planning to make sure that everything is optimised the best way. Okay. Then you've got your state pension. What does your state pension entitlement look like? Do you need to defer it? You could get higher payments in the future. That's a case of running the break-even analysis on different deferral strategies. Okay, if you're an expat, ensure you've got enough qualifying years for the state pension, and obviously you can top them up anyway through the HMRC website. So when we get into year 5, this is your last year before retirement, and it's all about like the last moving parts really before you enter that new part of your life. So again, you'll have different asset allocation, probably a heavier weighting to fixed income, 2 to 3 years in cash and short-term assets. That'll just give you like the guaranteed income that you need. So if you need to sell, you're not going to be like wiped out by a market event because you've got the liquidity there. You need to think about how you're going to withdraw the funds, exactly how much money you need in retirement. Which account are you going to draw it from first? How will you manage the tax on that? You might want to withdraw from the taxable accounts first, then tax deferred, and then tax free. Everybody's situation is different. Okay, So your tax bracket will also change when you're in retirement. You might not be a higher income paying 40-45% tax. So again, you can plan around that. I've done a really good video about having a £72,000 tax-free income in retirement. All right. So again, you need to look at your healthcare, your pensions, insurance transition. Like, you might not be covered if you have domestic insurance and things like that. You need to understand what is covered and what isn't. So review all of your insurance needs, like life, disability, long-term care, etc., etc. Some will be covered, some won't. I think, like, now we're going to talk about the different mistakes that people make. So first one is a big one: panicking about market volatility. All right. Something happens in the market, Trump behaves like Trump, and then everybody moves everything to cash because they're scared of losing money. Doing this is just a dead cert way of losing money to inflation over a period of time. Okay. Retirement date isn't set in stone. Some people are saying, right, I want to retire at 57, or I want to retire at age 60. Sometimes it's just not realistic, and actually just deferring it by a couple of years can improve your retirement tenfold. People ignore healthcare costs as well, and with insurance and healthcare, it gets more expensive the older you are, and neglecting that as part of your budget is not sensible. Again, you've got the poor pension timing as well, so taking the benefits at the wrong time or in the wrong way. The difference between optimal and suboptimal pension strategies can cost you 50 to 100 grand. I'm not exaggerating. We've done a separate video on no tax codes for HMRC, which you should really have a look at. For expats moving countries, again, this is very, very important. I've seen people lose so much money unnecessarily due to taxes, poor timing, and not taking advice. All right. And what else? We have lifestyle inflation. Increasing spending in anticipation of retirement. Your final working years should be your highest saving years, not your highest spending. You're about to go into the go-go years where you're going to be spending money like there's no tomorrow, but you've got a lot of tomorrows left. So if you're approaching retirement there with over £1 million, if you're one of the lucky ones, or close to that figure, there's a lot more that we can do as well. So that'll be looking at different trusts, offshore portfolio bonds. Offshore portfolio bonds actually work beautifully for the vast majority of expats that are moving back to the UK, but we can talk about that another time. And then they've got like your alternatives as well, so that'll be like different types of assets like crypto and whatever that may be. I'd only recommend a small allocation to crypto though, because it's incredibly volatile. You've then got your tax to think about, and again, having like the right structure in place can just make sure that you don't overpay on tax. Now, from a charitable point of view, there might be gifting strategies that we could look at there, just again to reduce any tax that might fall due in the future. You have your multi-generational planning. So we might be having a conversation where we're saying, well, actually, you're going to have a lot of money left over here, even if you survive to 100, and even if you have all the income that you need, and then some, there's going to be something left. So we can help transition that wealth through to your children and even the grandchildren if you wanted to. But it's not all about money. So the emotional preparation always gets ignored, and that preparation for retirement is incredibly important, because you're essentially you'll probably go through an identity crisis. You've worked for 30, 40 years, well respected in your industry, you've done a lot of good things, and then all of a sudden, like that, you're gone, retired. So having a job provides you with structure and purpose. So what's going to replace that in retirement? Maybe volunteer work, consultancy roles, hobbies, or whatever you want to do. It's just very important that you actually do it. You then got to think about changes in relationship, spouses, kids, grandkids. You're going to be spending a lot more time together. You need to make sure that you guys are like as socially integrated as Then got control and independence. So successful professionals, retirement means giving up control, and this is quite tough, to be fair. I'm a massive control freak. I know that that's something that I'm going to struggle with in the future. I think the best way to deal with that is to prepare. Okay, so consider I'm working with a retirement coach, not just a financial advisor, but somebody that will actually be able to coach you through that process. You're about to make the most critical decisions of your financial life, and these next 5 years are going to determine your quality of life for the next 20 to 30 years. You can't afford to wing it. You definitely can't afford to put it off, and you definitely can't afford to make the mistakes that can't be undone. Right? The strategies that I've given you in this short video, year by year roadmap, asset allocation, tax planning, opportunities, mistake avoidance, that's just a start. That's just the foundation of it all. Everybody's situation is different, unique. Everybody needs a different plan. There is no one size fits all. So your income level, retirement savings, risk tolerance, retirement timeline, family situation, healthcare, where you're going to be, all of these factors will need to be put together into a strategy that is actually fit for purpose. Okay. Most importantly, you need accountability and expertise to guide you through these complex decisions. The stakes here are simply too high to rely on generic advice or on outdated rule of thumb. So if you are serious about securing your retirement, if you want to sleep well at night knowing that you've optimised these critical 5 years, you need professional guidance specifically designed for your situation. Okay, don't watch this now, sack it off for 2 years when you realise, oh God, that fat fellow in the video was right, I do need to look at this now. Don't enter retirement wondering if you've done everything that you should have done. Okay, don't leave it down to chance. If you sit with a professional, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get told that everything's fine, and you can just crack on as you are. If you need work, you'll get good advice from the right financial advisor. All right. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Thank you.